Hey there folks, this video is to help walk you through the process of completing your professional development plan for MUSC 347. So one of the very first things you're going to want to do is to take a look at the KUD, which just stands for Know, Understand, and Do. You may have seen this document sometime before, maybe in 250, maybe in 350, not sure. But all it is a way of saying at the emergent level, the developing level, and the proficient level, this is what I know, this is what I understand, and this is what I can do, related to the standards by which you will be evaluated as a teacher candidate and as a teacher out there in the North Carolina public schools. Right now we call them the teacher candidate standards, but they're almost exactly the same as the, professional teaching standards that if you get a job in the North Carolina public schools, those are the standards by which you will be assessed. So there are 5 big standards. Standard 1 is about leadership. Standard 2, let's get down to it. Nope, we're still in 1, guys. It's a long document, I'm sorry. Standard 2 is establishing a respectful environment for a diverse population of students. Standard 3 is about your content, essentially. There we go. Teachers know the content that they teach. Standard 4 is another kind of instructional, student need-based standard. Teachers facilitate learning for their students. And then standard 5 is kind of about reflection. Let's go to 5. Teachers reflect on their practice. And so each substandard within there is sort of related in some way to the big standards. Now, what I'm going to have you guys do, and I know this process is going to take a long time, and I apologize for it right now, but I think it will help you to actually construct a good professional development plan, is to take the KUD survey. So what you would do is click on that link, and let's go ahead and put my email in here. Maybe msoja at. It's me. My name is not Christine. It's my middle name. Now you know that about me. So what I would want to do as I go through here is to read each section of the KUD and rate myself and say, well, where am I on these areas in, standard 1A1, where am I at? Am I proficient? Am I developing? Am I emergent? Well, I'm just kind of going to keep both windows open and sort of look at them, read them, and say, where am I at on this? And you're going to go through and do that for each and every one of the standards except one. There is one standard that I kind of don't care that you evaluate yourself on right now, and it is demonstrating leadership in the school. The reason why I'm not concerned with that at this particular moment is because you're not in a position to demonstrate leadership within a school. There's almost no way for you to work on improving yourself in that way during this semester. So yes, it would be great for self-assessment, but I'm not going to accept any professional development goals that are based on that standard. So I just entirely took it out. So if I go back up to 1A1, look at myself, take Soja as an example. 1A1 says, acknowledges the importance of high school graduation for students. Well, I definitely get that. I feel like I wouldn't be a teacher if I weren't at the proficient level on this one. Evaluates the progress of students toward high school graduation using a variety of assessment data, measuring goals of the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. I will know and acknowledge the standards of the discipline, that means music education, the general scope and sequence of K through 12, meaning what do we teach and when, vertical alignment or articulation of the discipline, so how does everything move up and down throughout that, how is it relevant, what are the unpacking documents that are related to teaching music in North Carolina schools K through 12? Do I understand the standards, data, and unpacking documents that help me plan? How do I choose assessments based on the standards? How to make connection between music content and real-life applications? And then how do I influence students toward graduation? And do I intervene and understand how to intervene appropriately if there's somebody who's not moving toward graduation in my area? And then what can I do? Set expectations of graduation as often and as early as possible. Okay. Monitor student progress in relation to standards and unpacking documents, definitely. And then intervene as necessary to help students move toward graduation. I definitely feel good in all of that. And you might be saying to yourself, I get some of that, but maybe not all of it. Maybe I'm not sure about scope and sequence from K through 12. You might say, I'm not 100% there. And if you're not, you would look back at the developing things and say, here's where I think I am. I might be here. Or maybe you're like, I know there's a North Carolina Standard Course of Study, and I know music is part of it. But maybe I don't know everything about music in the standard course of study. Maybe I'm only emergent here. Maybe I'm developing here. So go through and ask yourself these questions and then, mark yourself for each one. Now, of course, the only one that isn't there, as I mentioned, is 1B, because it's not really something that you can work on this semester. So I just took it off. Now, everything else is there. And I'm so sorry, I'm going to tell you it's a long survey because, 4 is a whopper. There's a lot of substandards in 4. You can see there's 4F, 4G, 4G, 4H. Oh my goodness. So you go all the way down to H in 4. And then, you get through 5 and it's not so bad. And then I ask you a couple little questions at the end, which is, all right, so looking at standard 1, which is about leadership, which things do you feel the most comfortable with? What things do you wish you knew more about? Looking at standard 2, et cetera, et cetera. So go through that, write a little. You don't have to write a paragraph for me. It can just be, 1 or 2 lines or even just a couple of words. That's fine. And then submit it. And then I'll get that data from you. And then after you do that, we're going to work on setting a professional development plan together and learning how to set goals. So let's take a look at the template itself. See whether it's going to come up for me. Maybe. There we go. So what you're going to want to put on there is your name and semester and year. The rest of it, don't worry about. You can tell that we use these during student teaching. It's the same form that you'll use when you do your professional semester. And you should recognize these teaching standards. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the substandards are the things upon which you rated yourself. So what I would want to do is have you maybe look at 1 or 2 substandards to work on, or maybe just one. Maybe there's one area where you're like, this is the thing that I would like to do this semester. Some places that you might want to look at, the really heavy areas are 2, 3, and 4. Not that 1 isn't important, not that 5 isn't important, but at this point in your program, you might want to look at some of the substandards in Standard 2, Standard 3, and Standard 4, because that's mostly what we're going to be looking at doing this semester. So let's dig into one of them and see what type of goals we might want to have that are related to that. Maybe adapting their teaching for the benefit of students with special needs. Maybe that's something that you're like, I think I can do that, but I'm not sure how well I would really do. I mean, I think we all feel comfortable knowing that there are students with individual needs and teachers have to meet those needs through differentiated instruction, but you might be thinking, well, I don't know how to get that stuff. I don't know how to do that for music. I'm not sure where to go forward on that. Eek. Right? That might be tough. So how do you develop and select resources that are appropriate for a student? You might be like, yeah, I don't know how to do that. So maybe that's a goal that you want to work towards. I want to be better at that particular standard. So what I would do is look at 2D1, and I would probably put that here. I would say, okay, 2D1. And I could look back at the KUD and say, what is it that I want to get better at? maybe developing and selecting resources and appropriate instruction for individual student learning. Maybe that's something that I want to get better at this semester. So I could go back and say that's the thing. Oh boy, cut and paste is a little bit of a mess. But you guys, I think, get the basic gist here. That's the thing that I want to get better at. Well, okay, great. That seems nice, but going from saying, well, this is what I'm going to learn this semester, how do you get from saying that you want to do it to actually doing it? Well, what types of activities are you going to put yourself through or to do or to complete in order to get yourself from where you are to feeling more comfortable with this element? And then how will you know that you did it? And what will you need to actually be able to accomplish the goal? And what's the timeline? So you might be going, okay, that's cute, but how do I even set these goals? Well, let's take a look a little bit at goal setting. How do you set a goal? You may have seen this before. Maybe you have, maybe not. It's a favorite of Dr. Parker, Dr. Clark, and it has been used by Dr. Wesson before. Part of the reason that I'm having you guys start with self-assessment is because it's an important part of setting your goals. Sometimes if you don't know where you're starting from, you can't really set an appropriate goal going forward. For example, if you had a kid that didn't know their alphabet and you said, well, you're going to read War and Peace by the end of this grade, that wouldn't be a very good goal. So you got to assess where you're starting from. And then, well, where do I want to go? We kind of have an idea about that. And now we're getting to the area of how do I get from one point to another? So if you want to be a goal-minded person, this is how you get there, really. Doing a self-assessment. Doesn't necessarily have to be annual. It could be, twice a semester, 3 times a semester. I typically give myself a lot of checkpoints during a semester. How am I doing? What am I doing? What do I need to change up? And then I look at, observations that other people have done of me, my own, analyzing evaluations that have been done of me, looking at formal and informal feedback, looking at student data. That's definitely something that I've done a lot, especially collaborating with colleagues. Part of the reason that we're doing some of the things that we're doing this semester in this class is because I've looked at elementary, talked to former students and said, what's been useful to you? What hasn't been useful? And then I've looked at, what assignments other people have completed in the past. And I've said, I really want to change how this is going. I don't necessarily like how this went. I've got to figure out a way to do this differently. So I've been taking all of these sources of information, looking at them and saying, here's the change I want to make. How am I going to do it? So we've got process goals and results goals. If you have a process goal, it's like, how far are you really going to be able to get there? Produces busyness. That's not something you want. You want a result oriented goal. Has a clear outcome. It's in results. It has regular data and assessment, and usually there's a lot of success involved in it. Now, that's not to say that sometimes your goal can't be on making a process better. That's okay. It's okay to do that. But the big thing that we're looking at here is creating SMART goals. So SMART, of course, is an acronym. It just means that it's a specific and strategic goal. Usually specific is the one most people, hang on to. So you don't just say, I'm going to get better at playing the piano this semester. Well, okay, that's a good goal to have, but how will you get better at the piano? What specifically about playing the piano do you want to be better at? Are you not great at your scales? Are you not great at playing, 2 hands? Is there, an accompaniment pattern that you're looking to improve your ability to do? Do you want to focus on part playing? Do you want to get a specific rhythmic thing down? I have issues with certain rhythmic accompaniments in my left hand when my right hand is doing something different. That's something I've focused on in the past. So it needs to be a specific goal. So are these statements specific? Increase my skills to be a better teacher. No, not really. More effectively use technology. Sort of. Use technology how? More effectively. Okay. For what? How? What purpose? Increase the graduation rate. By? Increase direct services to students. Maybe, right? The second letter in SMART goals, the M, means it's measurable, meaning that you can say, here's what I did. Can you measure these things? More of my instruction will include diversity and cultural lessons. That's a sort of. That's like a halvesies. But it would be more specific and you could measure it more easily if you said, I want to make sure that out of my week of lesson plans, out of 5 days, that 2 out of my 5 lessons a week will include more diversity and cultural lesson standards, in there. That would be measurable, which... Here we go. It's like I can't read, you guys. I'll use technology in my classroom 3 out of 5 days a week. That's measurable. More parents will be involved in my teaching. Not really measurable, right? Maybe you want to increase it and say, I want to have at least this many parents involved in my teaching. Also, this could be a much more specific goal. A, attainable or achievable. Again, like when I said, hey, if you can't read the alphabet, you shouldn't be making a goal to read War and Peace by the end of the semester. Not a good idea. So it has to be something that you can actually do. All of my students will receive a level 4 on their reading and math EOGs. Maybe you might be able to do that. 90% of students will graduate. Possibly. I will incorporate critical thinking and problem-solving activities in every lesson. Maybe. Is it attainable? Is it achievable? Now, that doesn't mean you want to lowball yourself and be like, well, let's shoot low. You do want to shoot high, but you want to make sure that it's something that you can actually achieve. Because you know what happens when you make unachievable goals? You give up. You give up. So make a realistic, attainable goal. R is relevant, meaning, is it relevant to teaching? Now I've seen Dr. Parker do this video before and say, I'll reduce my stress by exercising 3 times per week. And he was like, is that relevant? And I'm like, well, yes, to me it's relevant because I'm a better teacher when I manage my stress levels appropriately. Is it exactly relevant to the goal of developing and using better activities that are related to meeting special needs of students in my classroom? No, not really. Is it relevant to the element that I want to work on? Not quite. I'll serve on the SIP, that means School Improvement Committee, this school year. Okay, depending on what what element you're addressing, then yeah, sure. Our school will increase the number of students proficient on all EOCs by 15%. That might be relevant depending on what your goal is. So you want to make sure that whatever it is you're saying you're going to do relates back to that element that you want to address. So if I go back to, nope, y'all, it's not even the same. There we go. If I go back to this and say developing and selecting resources and appropriate instruction for individual student learning, I'm going to want my goals to have something to do with this in order to be relevant. All right. And then the T is time bound. It means, hey, when are you going to get this done by? So by the end of the 2014 school year, I'll be proficient on all standards and elements. Okay, that's a time bound goal. Yes, absolutely. I will teach global awareness in my classroom. That is not time-bound. By when? How often? Any of that. So that is not a time-bound goal. All right, so those are SMART goals. There's a plan, do, study, act. You look at what you're currently doing, set your goals, then you carry out your established strategies and tasks, study your results and say, okay, how did I do with that? Did I meet the mark? Did I not meet the mark? And then you make your adjustments and ensure success. Now I have to go through this process a lot. I go through this process every single year, and I'm required to set goals every year. Even here at Gardner Webb, it's a real thing that I do. Let me see if I can find do I have it? My self-evaluation from last year. Let's see if I can find what my goal was, because I definitely have to do it. Examples of student work. Now, I don't have to do them exactly the same way. I don't think that I have to make SMART goals. I should probably start doing that. Just saying. Service activities. Where are my goals? You guys? Summary of my goals from the previous year. All right, so what I had to do, continue concert for a cause events. That was something that's really important to me. Alignment with the other undergraduate programs in the School of Education, connect with area middle and high schools as part of service and recruitment, and then complete a research study on work-life balance among music educators in the Southeast. So those are the things that I wanted to do this past year, and I'm going to tell you right now, I got some of them. I got 1, 2, 3 of my goals. The fourth one that I did not get is right here. I did not research work and life balance among music educators in the Southeast. I just haven't gotten it off the ground yet. So I also have to look at, what did I do? How am I going to do this? Whew, right? So I've got to look at that and say, do I still want to have this goal? Is this a relevant goal? Is this something that I need to be doing? How can I break this up into something that's more attainable? If I still think that this is important, how do I do it? How do I get myself there? If I still feel that it's important, that's all a part of this process that we're talking about. This plan, do, study, act. I'm going to look at it and go, well, I got 3 out of my 4 goals. How do I adjust this so that maybe I can finally get to this 4th goal? Did I bite off more than I could chew? Yes, I did. So what am I going to do to help? All right, so a sample goal that they use is all students will have a reading comprehension level of 85% or higher. Here's how we're going to do it. I need to have more materials and resources. I need to use differentiation better. I need to use multiple forms of student assessment. These are some things. All right, how can I do that? Use a checkout log. I'm going to use differentiation in my lesson plans, have student goal plans. I'm going to use 2 formative assessments and measures every 3 weeks. I'm going to have summative assessments every 3 weeks. And then, how will I know that I did it? How will I know that I completed this? 1 new resource is reviewed each week. That's what I got to do. Okay, if I use differentiation in my student goal plans, 100% of student plans are going to reflect individual goals and outcomes. 90% of reading plans reflect differentiation. So they're just saying, here's the way that we know. Here's how we found out that it worked. Great. All right, so let's go back to my goal. How am I going to get here? What goals do I want to have in order to develop and select resources and appropriate instruction for individual student learning? This is something I want to learn more about, and it's related to students with special needs. So how can I do this? I need to be more familiar with resources that relate to students with special needs. So that's going to be something I do. Increase. All right, that's an example of a goal, but is it a good goal? Let's set it through SMART, right? Is it specific? Whew. It doesn't even pass specific. I mean, yeah, I want to have more resources, but what does that even mean at this point? Increase familiarity with. So how about collect collect and categorize resources for students with special needs in the music classroom. Okay, that's more specific. Is it measurable though? No, we can't say. So how many do I need? How many is appropriate? Collect and categorize at least 15 resources for students with special needs in the music classroom. So is it specific? Yes. Is it measurable? Yes. Is it attainable? Yes. It kind of depends on what our time-bound thing is, right? Like, how long am I going to take to do it? Because it's definitely relevant. Let's see. Okay. So I've got a time-bound portion. So we have a specific, measurable, somewhat attainable, we think, relevant, time-bound goal. Whew. Okay, so that's just writing the goal. And then we have to say, well, what activities and actions am I going to do in order to make it? This is the part that you might feel like, I'm not sure how to do that. I'm not sure how to do these things. That's okay. All I want you to be able to do right now is to select this. What standard are you going to address? What element or elements are you going to address? And then write a goal or 2 goals related to that. And then we'll work on the other part together. That's why we're going to have one-on-one meetings with one another in order to develop these activities and actions, right? So try not to get overwhelmed about that. All I want you to do is do the KUD, look at it, evaluate yourself upon it, and then look at the standards that you might want to address, the element you might want to address, and then create 2 SMART goals related to it. Whew. Okay, and then if you're looking at 21st century skills, there are parts of Standard 4 that relate to 21st century skills. And so if you're wanting to know more about that, I have, the arts and 21st century skills and how they relate to music. So if there's something you're looking for, you'll probably see global awareness a lot. And so you can go to page 8 and be like, hey, what do they mean by global awareness? What is that even? We'll take a look at music. What this means. It says this is what it means as far as global awareness in music in K through 5. Here are some goals and objectives. This is what we want kids to be able to do. And so it'll do that. It gives you some sample ideas for each and every part of the arts, visual arts, performing arts, and so on and so forth. So sometimes it's financial, economic, business, and entrepreneurial literacy, beep, beep, bop, beep, beep, bop. Civic literacy is on there. Let's see. Health. We sometimes use that in music, right? Singing voices and speaking voices. So we don't always think of that health literacy as coming into music very often, and especially not in the K through 5 classroom, but it does exist. And so this document is a great way of looking at it and saying, okay, creativity and innovation skills. This is awesome, and we should do this way more in music. So maybe that's something that you're looking at doing, a place where you feel like you could really improve. So yeah, this is just sort of a crosswalk and unpacking document, like they say on the KUD, that's related. So this just hopefully gives you a little bit more information about the professional development plan. If you're feeling stuck, go ahead and look at it. I know this is a long video. You can also come in and, meet with me in my office. Guys, my office hours are here for a reason. I am around. I want to talk with you. You're not bothering me. Please come in. Bothering me is literally your job, and it's not a bother. So please do it. Let me help you. That's what I'm here for. So yeah, if you have any questions, send me an email, stop in. Let's sit down and talk about it. Have a great rest of the day, guys.